Now will we see the magic?
All right, where's Murray? Okay, who is it?
This is Jesus, kid.
Know then that it is the year 10,191.
Yes, we are bored. We're all bored now.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
Hello, and welcome to Mary versus the Movies with your host, Mary Jones.
And Dennis Lang.
And I'm not sure how to read that one.
Okay.
Oh, you're just going for all business, Mr. Robotic again?
Yeah. Mr. Roboto, as I call myself.
Well.
Domo.
Yo, no, I got the reference. It's fine. Anyway, welcome to episode 55. So we took a short break, but we are back.
Hi.
And we did promise last episode that the next movie would be The Long Good Friday. Originally, I thought it would come out on the Good Friday, but I have a terrible sense of time. And also, we usually record these about a week before they come out because I need the time to edit and all that. So, yeah, I don't know what day this is coming out. But it won't be Good Friday.
Yeah, it won't be.
It's not even like Orthodox Good Friday at this point. No, instead it's coming out in the future.
Was this recommended to you, or where do you know this from?
Twitter? No, you know what it is? I just know that it's a highly regarded British crime drama starring Bob Hoskins. And it just seemed like people saying, yeah, you gotta see this. It's a great movie. You gotta see this. So I said, all right.
And I think Helen Mirren is in it.
Is she?
Yeah, I think.
Okay. I don't know who's in it besides Bob Hoskins. It's a crime movie. It's supposed to be one of the great crime movies, one of the best like British movies of the 80s. It is 1980. So, just got that in. I don't know who directed it. I don't know who wrote it. I just know that he's a gangster of some kind.
So right now, for us, it's against Whoops Apocalypse and Honky Tonk Freeway. I think it might beat those two.
Oh, I think we're in good hands, actually.
Have we seen any other British films, like specifically British?
Specifically made, like, no, not for this podcast.
Oh, wait, Sword of the Valiant.
Oh, no, that is British. You're
Yeah.
right. But that's also not very good.
Yeah, I think it's gonna. This might be our number one British film for our podcast.
Yeah, I do intend to do a month of British films that I wanted to see. Like, I've never seen With Nail and I. What is it? A Passage to India is another one.
Oh yeah.
So there's like
that's got Judy Davis in it.
I know, and you love Judy Davis.
I love Judy Davis.
Yes. So yeah, no, there are a number of great British films that we've just haven't gotten to that we will get to for the podcast. Yeah, I don't know why I know about this movie, except that it's always sort of been on my radar as this is a good one.
Well, you're a Bob Hoskins fan too.
I don't know if that's accurate or inaccurate. Of the movies he was in that I've seen, I don't know that they're good movies other than Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Super Mario Brothers is not good, but I like him in it. Hook is not a good movie, but I like him as Smee. So I don't really know.
I think you like that kind of actor or character because you're a big Danny DeVito fan.
Yeah.
And I think there's just something about those characters.
Well,
that
and also he's got kind of like a James Gandolfini vibe.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I kind of,
like imagine him in The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover instead of Michael Gambon.
Different vibe.
It's sort of the same though.
Sort of the same.
Yeah.
No, Gambon always gave off more of a pervert vibe, which, I mean,
Yeah.
that partially that's that movie. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody who's going to be in his role in that movie is going to be that.
I'm just saying he can scare you. Like,
Oh,
he's a British guy that can scare you.
Sure. Yeah. No, I do like Bob Hoskins as an actor, and I'm kind of excited to see him in like a kind of a role that I haven't seen. I brought up Gandolfini, and I don't know why. It's not that it would remind me of The Sopranos, but I just have a feeling like, kind of contemporary gangster type thing intrigues me. It's just that it's going to be British version.
I just think that there's a kind of like a bull type persona for both of them.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, like some kind of masculine, I don't know.
I hate to use the word authentic because there's nothing authentic in acting. I mean, that's sort of the point. But there is a sort of a realistic vibe to them.
It's believable.
Believable.
I guess.
Yeah. There's something very believable about them. And I think because they don't look beautiful,
Right.
that helps.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not enough to just not look beautiful, but the fact that they don't really, like, you know, you'll never believe George Clooney is anything.
Yeah.
He is, you know, too good looking, and there's always an air of this isn't real.
Like it seems like Leonardo DiCaprio is acting his butt off just to get to seem believable.
Yeah, yeah.
He has to. All right, so what do you think this movie is about?
Okay, so I know that it's gangsters.
Yep.
It's British gangsters. I don't expect a stylish movie. You know, this is not going to be, you know, a Scorsese-like meditation on the glamour of evil and violence. I don't think it's going to have that kind of. I think it's going to be a grittier movie because it's being made at like the end of the 70s, so you have that whole like Thatcher would have just come into power. Britain had been in a state of crisis for like a decade or so. A very complicated, you know, situation. I honestly don't know what happens in this movie. I just have a feeling there's something. Yeah, I don't know. When I say stylish, I just mean I don't expect a movie with too many easy pleasures. A lot of American gangster films are extremely pleasurable. They are either, you know, gorgeously filmed and operatic, like The Godfather, okay, which is all saturated in, you know, golden tones and nostalgia. And, again, it's about people who are doing evil things, but it's also like making all these, you know, it has a lot of easy pleasures, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't really get to like, but you know, it.
But they're
you know,
monsters.
They pay for it, and
Yeah.
and that it doesn't really get to that till like the last 10 minutes of the film.
And like the way it does is great. I mean, don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. I love The Godfather and Part 2. I think, you know, I could watch either of those at the drop of a hat. But cinematically, they're very pleasurable to watch as well. And so you have this kind of issue of, because I don't want to say it glamorizes, you know, the lifestyle, but, you know, it does in a way. But only if you don't know how to, you know, really watch it till the end.
If you compare that to like cop films from the 70s.
See, I have a feeling this is going to feel more like a cop film of
That's
the
what
70s.
I was thinking
Yeah.
like the French Connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a feeling this is going to be closer in tone to something like The French Connection. Obviously seen from the other side, but just the sense of what pleasures you have in it. It doesn't feel, you know, there's not going to be something like, man, see, I love the movie Goodfellas, right?
Yeah.
Because Goodfellas is all about deconstructing the pleasure of the gangster movie, right? I don't think this is going to have that first half of the movie, which is all about reveling in, you know, being a gangster and how awesome it is. Because this is being made in England in the late 70s, in a country that is kind of, you know, falling apart.
Yeah.
I have a feeling it's probably going to be more reflective of, you know, a society falling apart. The way that like those movies made in New York in the 70s are the same way. You know, it's going to have that grittier kind of feel to it of, you know, this is like a world falling apart. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm expecting from this movie.
Do you think Hoskins makes it to the end?
I do, but I'll bet he pays heavily for whatever happens.
He gets chained to a rabbit.
So anyway, yeah, I think this will be interesting, you know, and you know we've been watching, you know, a lot of like kind of comedies and you know, kind of fun movies, and I think this will be kind of an interesting, you know, turn, at least for 1 week. So, all
right,
you ready to watch?
Yep.
All right.
When they kick at your front door, how you gonna come? With your hands on your head or on the trigger of your gun? When the law break in, how you gonna go? but you'll have to answer to.
And today is a day of great historical significance for London. Our country's not an island anymore. We're a leading European state. And I believe that this is the decade in which London will become Europe's capital, having cleared away the outdated.
Okay, so I think we both had this expectation of like a pastoral but gritty city crime thing, and we're like, oh yeah, well the British, they don't really do violence and stuff.
Well, now I never said the British don't do violence. I come from Irish stock. Let me tell you something.
I'm just saying in films and stuff.
Well,
we're kind of used to like all creatures great and small. You know,
Yeah.
like yeah, there's some cows that get
Been
violated.
watching a lot of Lark Rise to Candleford.
Yeah,
A lot of Father Brown, which can
And-
be violent.
and kind of forgot. Oh yeah, James Bond.
Yeah, that's true.
Like the biggest propaganda for sex, violence, and
and the monarchy, I guess.
yeah,
And this even has a James Bond in it.
does it?
Pierce Brosnan.
Oh yeah, you know,
Yeah, you forgot.
I just wiped that out. That's Remington Steel. That's not James Bond.
That is James Bond, baby.
If anyone has ever seen Remington Steel and
Oh, no.
have fond memories of it, just excise them from your head because it is so bad. I loved that show as a kid, and we watched it recently. I'm like, oh, you should see this show. It was great when I was a kid. You know, like, and oh my god, it's bad.
Yeah, it is not a good show.
It has not aged well. It like shows were really dumb then, especially a particular American type of American show.
Yeah, Remington Steel was along the lines of like Your Scarecrow and Mrs. King or Heart to Heart.
But I think those were even smarter than.
No, yeah, those were better than
because
Remington
definitely
Steel.
Zimbalist was just could not carry a show. Anyway,
But thankfully, this movie is so far away from that.
yeah.
I was stunned by how stylishly directed it was. Now, when I said this is not a stylish film, what I was trying to say was this is not a film that's going to glorify being a gangster, because even in shows that are about deconstructing those ideas, there are times when you're watching The Sopranos and it's like, yeah, of course I would love to do something incredibly stupid with Christopher.
Yeah.
Sure. You never have that feeling watching this film.
And I think it's even more of American films like Scorsese and Coppola. You know, these are deep films that like are investigating like capitalism and all that. But like they're beautiful films.
Yeah.
You know, like that top-down shot of Taxi Driver of Travis Bickle, like in blood and everything's yellow and red, and it's a painting. It's beautiful to look at. And you can easily, if you're predisposed to violence, you'd be like, yeah, I want to be that guy. You know, like you'd be wrong.
Yeah.
You don't want to be that guy. Nobody wants to be that guy.
You would be completely misunderstanding what you're watching.
Exactly.
But at the same time, you understand aesthetically how it's captivating.
But I think with British, and now not James Bond, but I think with a certain kind of British violent film, they kind of capture violence a little more brutally, like say like The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover, another Helen Mirren film.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of style and like it's an amazing film to watch. You still feel sickened whenever something terrible happens.
Yeah.
So there's another movie called Get Carter. It came out in 1971. And I haven't seen it. I've seen parts of it. This is from Twitter. I end up seeing like 2 minutes of a film at a time on these things. Like, here's a video of an important film. And I'll end up watching this and I'm like, wow, that was great, man. I can't wait to watch the rest of it. And then I never do.
So you saw some of Get Carter, the Michael Caine.
The Michael Caine, and it's very violent, very unapologetic about it, but it also is kind of horrifying. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, again, that's a film I really should see. I just never got around to it. It is fascinating how this is not a film that shies away from violence, although I never feel like the violence is, when it's brutal, it's just brutal. It's just, how else do I put it? Visceral.
Right.
When they stab Colin. So when he stabs Jeff in the throat, it is horrible looking. It's absolutely, I mean, it is visceral, but it's also realistic in a way.
Yeah.
Especially the way he bleeds out so quickly because he cuts the jugular.
Yeah, that bottle will be the death of him.
Yeah. It's also a witty film. I gotta say, this is an extremely well-written script in terms of, like, it's quippy, but at the same time, it's not obnoxiously quippy.
Yeah.
It's not, like, I like Tarantino, but it's not like Tarantino, although you can see how Tarantino borrows from this.
Right.
It's a bit more low-key in the way that it's quippy.
Mm-hmm.
This is a film that, it's not that it's hard to get my hands around. There is so much in this movie. Could have just been a pretty standard 2-hour gangster flick. It is that. It is absolutely that. But it's also a meditation on masculinity and sexuality, whiteness, imperialism, the British Empire, the 70s, violence. I mean, there is a lot going on in this movie.
Like, I think all the best gangster films are just about capitalism.
Yeah, they're all about Western civilization and what we have built over the past, X hundred number of years, and how it's inherently corrupt and sustained through violence.
And a lot of times it's about the whole idea of, like, well, business is separate from violence. And once you become a proper businessman, you don't have to deal with violence anymore because you're a proper, respectable member of society. And it has this fantasy that, like, well, business is above violence. It's respectable. And in the end of, of this, Godfather 2, no, you can't separate the two.
No, you can't. And of course, what's interesting is this idea that we have, well, people would watch that and go, well, their problem was they started out as criminals, so of course it could only end in violence. And what nobody likes to interrogate is the fact that large corporations incorporated in the United States that then go off to other countries enforce their existence through violence, right?
Yeah.
So, we don't talk about the United Fruit Company. We don't talk about all of the coups that we've engineered. We don't talk about, and this is not an American company, but, talk about Nestle and their use of slavery in Africa. We don't talk about the ways that above board, entirely legal multinational corporations use violence in order to generate profits.
So, you were right. He lives till the end of the movie.
He does live till the end of the movie. Then the movie ends. When I was watching this, I tweeted out a joke that, repurposing that meme, and saying, woman who's only ever seen The Sopranos, this has a lot of heavy Sopranos vibes.
Yeah.
But this has a lot of heavy Sopranos vibes.
It really does.
I mean, it really does. That's really the only American analog I can think of in terms of how none of these people are particularly glamorous. And the violence is never glamorous.
Now, there's no cartoon like Silvio or Polly Walnuts.
No. But then again, this is only a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's nothing cartoonish about the characters in it. These guys are scary, thuggish people, but they're never a caricature. But yeah, like The Sopranos, this ends with, well, this is a bit more clear cut because he clearly is going to be killed as soon as the film stops rolling.
I would not want to be in a car with Pierce Brosnan looking at me that way.
Not holding a gun like that. No. And poor Helen Mirren, kidnapped in the other car. Yeah, she's dead. Everybody's dead at the end of this, except that we don't see them die. You see him cycle through all of these thoughts on his face as he's being, led away in this car, having realized it was not, the Rolls Royce that he thought he was going to be in with his wife. But you just watch, these looks of terror and regret and, even how do I scheme my way out of this? You see all these thoughts crossing his face for like the last minute or two of the film. And it's really just on him. And occasionally, cutting back to Pierce Brosnan, holding him hostage. It's so incredibly well done. But my point being that much like the end of The Sopranos, we don't actually see him die.
Say you're listening to this and you're like, I don't want to watch that movie. That sounds too violent for me. You can just watch that last scene.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can find it on YouTube, and it's just him. It's just the camera's on him, and then the camera switches over to Pierce Brosnan, I think like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Just smirking.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, it's like, and it's
chilling.
It's an amazing scene, just an amazing
Acting performance.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant.
So how did we get there through the whole movie?
So in, I don't know, the 12th century, this guy named Strongbow tried to get the English to come over and...
Is this a Homestar Runner character?
Yeah. So, because the film actually does deal with the Troubles. You don't entirely realize it until maybe halfway through the movie. This is a movie about the IRA trying to get revenge on the British organized crime because they think they've been screwed out of some money and had their people killed by organized crime. So the film starts, we don't realize it, it's over in outside of Belfast.
Yeah.
And you've got a guy who we find out is a gangster going to make a deal. And
actually, the second I saw him,
yeah,
I was
this
like,
is funny.
That's Belloc.
And it is Belloc. It's
That's Beloche.
Yes. It's what's his name? Paul Freeman. Yeah, he plays Colin, who he's a high-ranking gangster who apparently we find out later is sort of doing some work on the side for a councilman in London, because of course part of the idea is that the councilmen are corrupt, the building trades are corrupt, property development is corrupt, everything is corrupt.
The head chief of police.
The chief of police is corrupt. Everybody is corrupt in different ways, and the irony of the film is Bob Hoskins, who is the head of organized crime, does not realize not only is everybody corrupt, but people are doing deals under him that he doesn't know about that then get traced back to him, although he did not authorize any of it.
Right.
So this guy Colin is over in Belfast doing a deal, and he rips off Irish gangsters who are funneling money to the IRA. This is the 70s. The Troubles have restarted. There have been bombings and assassinations. The IRA is still trying to get the English out of the North, a thing which is still not resolved, and we'll come back to.
How does this fit in with the Dairy Girls?
Well, actually, no, it's not unrelated, but it's complicated. So, because Colin went and ripped off the IRA by stealing some money from the guys that they were doing deals with, because essentially the idea is a lot of the guys who do physical labor in the UK are Irish, okay? So they're all involved in the building trades. Well, being involved in the building trades, sometimes, and this is true in the United States, you're also funneling money to the IRA because you don't want the English to be in charge in Northern Ireland, because for centuries there have been discriminatory practices against native-born Irish, especially if they're Catholic, etc., so on and so forth. So they have unsurprising sympathies with an organization that is trying to get a ruling class out of their country.
We're about 3 minutes into the film.
Yeah, I know. But this is very important to explain what happens in this movie, okay? So, again, you go back to the 12th century, the English invaded, and it's all been downhill since then.
It's going to be a 3-hour episode.
It could easily be. But it's important to explain what's going on because, unlike the film, we don't have to spool it out the way that they do.
Right.
At the same time that he's ripping off guys involved in the building trades, several IRA guys who are also connected to it, they get bumped off. The film, I don't think, explains exactly who bumps them off.
The thing is, there's no dialogue.
Yeah.
We just see these guys get handed money. It goes through these channels. Colin, the gangster, the London gangster, actually starts hitting on a guy in a pub. Pub. While this is going on, it seems as though special forces, UK special forces, or Northern.
Don't ask me if it's local paramilitaries or not paramilitary. Don't ask me if it's like the local, or if it's somebody else doing it, sort of off books. But somebody goes and assassinates 3 IRA members.
But also the driver, Phil, who was a gangster as well. Yeah. And then another guy.
Yeah.
Actually,
a couple
the
other
guy
guys get killed as well, who are working for Colin. So
when this is happening, as the audience, we don't know who these people are. We don't know anything that's going on.
We don't know that this is all happening over in Belfast.
We're kind of piecing this together later from things were said later.
Yeah, this all becomes clear what the opening of the film is much later, towards the end of the movie. But we're explaining it now just because, we have to.
Yeah, at the beginning, strangers get killed. We have no idea why.
We have no idea what this has to do with anything because, like, the first 10 minutes of the film, there's almost no dialogue.
Yeah.
And we cut then to, we're back, I don't know, a few days later, back in London. Colin does not get killed for whatever reason. He escapes. So then the first, I don't know, half hour of the movie are these assassins who keep trying to track him down, and they're killing other people in their way to get to him. And of course, the idea of killing Colin is he's maybe third in command, second in command. He's high up in the organization. He goes way back with Bob Hoskins' character.
Harold Shand.
Harold Shand. Yeah, we'll try to refer to him by his character. We come back to London. Jeff, another one of these high up guys, is sitting and having a beer or whatever outside, and the widow of the driver comes up and spits in his face. And again, we don't really know what that's about. We know there's a funeral going on. We don't know how all these people are connected.
It's very Jaws.
Yeah, it is actually. It is kind of like
with the Kittner's widow. Or
the Kittner boy. Then we cut to Harold.
Yeah, he comes in a Concorde.
Yes, Harold comes back from New York on the Concorde. He has money. This is back when there was a Concorde. And he's been over in New York trying to raise money because his whole thing is he's going to go into property development on, I guess, what's now Canary Wharf. Yeah. So this is actually what does happen over the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of people people have talked about there's a lot of predictions in this movie that the screenwriter actually had heard rumblings of.
Yeah.
And so that's why he put it in from different council members.
Right. He knew that they wanted to redevelop all these docks on the East End into what became the financial hub, really the financial hub of Europe. He's got this whole thing where he's trying to get the American mafia to invest money into helping him redevelop along the waterway. And the, London councilman Harris is also in on it, pushing this. Like they all see a gold mine sitting there for redevelopment, which it ends up being.
Right.
And is also part of the reason why nobody can afford to live in London anymore is because what he wants to do is what ends up happening where, they build all of these skyscrapers and condos and everything that nobody can afford to live in. And they're basically just used as shell companies for Russian oligarchs and, wealthy magnates from, the Middle East to funnel money into it basically, this movie is about hollowing out their own country. Harold comes back and he's got this whole deal set up and he's like throwing parties and bringing in people. And, he has a yacht that he likes to sail up and down the Thames with his wife, Helen Mirren, who is great in this, by the way. She plays Victoria. And so, part of this film is them trying to do all these deals. And at the same time, people are sending off bombs and people are trying to assassinate them. And they have no idea why. They have no idea what's going on. They don't know that Colin ripped off the IRA. They don't know that, people are getting, assassinated, So the reason it's called the Long Good Friday is because this is all happening on like Good Friday through, late on Holy Saturday, I guess. And the idea is that it's this holiday weekend and they're partying the whole time while his mother goes off to church. And as his mother has gone off to church while she's inside, another car bomb goes off. I
think he even says that she's going to church 3 times a day now.
Yeah. Because her son's a gangster. And so, she's just like, yep, I'm going back to church again. Mm-hmm. They're trying to kill Colin. They finally get a hold of Colin. He goes to basically a bathhouse. Yeah. Brosnan leads him on and then stabs him in the gut. And,
and he has an accomplice.
He does have an accomplice, yeah. So basically these two guys are assassins from the IRA. But we don't know that yet. We don't know that they are Irish or anything because they don't have any dialogue. They never speak. Like I think Brosnan at one point just says hi.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's his only line in the whole film. But he's in the movie. Yep. He is hard to miss. Then the rest of the film is Harold trying to figure out, why did my mother's car get blown up? Why did my second in command get killed? Why did my pub get blown up? All at the same time that I'm trying to do a deal to get these American gangsters to invest money into this project. And so he's trying to, on the one hand, keep, these investors happy and not worried that things are going down, while at the same time, people are trying to assassinate him. Now, he doesn't know. He thinks this is a gang war that is going to erupt, because for the last 10 years, he has been able to keep organized crime sort of united, and everybody gets a bit of their own piece of the pie, and things aren't, there's no kind of turf wars, there's no violence, everybody just kind of goes along to get along because they can make a lot of money this way. Mm-hmm. Which reminds me a lot of what my mother would describe was Philadelphia when like Angelo Bruno ran the mob. My mother kind of did not realize she was working for Bruno, but was. So that's But and if you've ever seen The Irishman, Angelo Bruno is the character. He's the character played by Harvey Keitel, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay.
Because he was the head of the mob in Philadelphia, and he was assassinated. This is all connected to the song Atlantic City because the Chicken Man was one of Angelo Bruno's guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so the reason I bring this up is this is the late 70s, and organized crime goes through a whole spate of violence at this moment. Probably, it's partially brought on by the economic crises of the Anglo-American world, in response to the oil embargoes and just sort of the collapse of the post-World War II economic world order. These are all really relevant to what's happening in the film and why he thinks that this is an internal conflict. He doesn't realize it's actually an external conflict.
Right.
Okay. So he thinks this is all about like his own guys just, starting turf wars over winning a piece of pie. He does not realize that this is actually about, anti-colonialist struggle in his own backyard. You got to really think about what this is actually saying about how, complacent Anglo-capitalist person, they think that their enemy is maybe other businessmen when they don't realize that, it's actually the rest of the world's going to come for them. Right. One hopes.
So the funny thing about his speech about like the new Europe, and he's like, London's going to be the center of the new Europe or something. Yeah. And he's like, it's going to be the capital of Europe. We're all going to make a ton of money. And it's funny now in the post-Brexit world.
It is very funny. Yeah, he gives this whole amazing speech where he talks about how, one reason to develop this whole area is because we are going to be, we've joined the common market. We are going to become the capital of Europe. We're going to be the economic engine of the entire continent. This is great. You want to put the money here. And here's the thing. He's not wrong for the most part. That's what happens when they develop that whole area of London and they put all of these banks in there. They put all these investment companies in there. That's exactly what they did. And this is partially why they thought they could get away with it when they did Brexit, is because they said, we are the Bank of Europe, or this economic hub, even though we don't take part with the euro, everybody does all their business through us because we are perfectly fine with corruption. We don't care how you cook your books. Just, do it on our turf, right? And so he's right. They became essentially the financial capital of Europe. It didn't go to Frankfurt. It didn't go to, Zurich. They went to London because, in part just because the English language is, very useful, because it's just easier to deal with Americans if you've got people who speak English. There's a lot of reasons, but also it's just because, in London they said, we essentially have legalized corruption. We don't believe in a regulatory state anymore. They still believe in a regulatory state in other parts of Europe. That's, and unlike, say, Italy, they were not having panics, constantly. The whole reason why they went to London is very complicated. And I realize I'm turning this, stupid podcast into, I'm trying to do like an economic, quasi-Marxist history lesson on, but this is a movie that actually calls for that. And I'm trying to do it right. I'm trying to do it like off the top of my head without sounding boring. But where I'm going with this is, so he gives this amazing speech, and he's absolutely right about everything, except that the irony of the speech is, one, he's not going to be the guy who gets to do it.
Unless he gets out. You never know.
He does not get out. He's not going to be the guy who gets to do this.
There was going to be a sequel. Really dumb sequel.
Thank God they did not. But also, and this is something that really impacts the end of the way that what this film is about, because the UK was part of the common market and part of the European Union that succeeded the common market. There was free movement across borders. Okay, you didn't need a visa to go from London to Paris to Berlin to Dublin. All right, you didn't need anything. It was just like if I drove from Lansdale to New York City. You just go, right? That's not really the case anymore. Okay, so that you need a passport to go from London to Paris, and so you don't have these open borders anymore. Now the problem with that is you still have Northern Ireland. But the thing is, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland have been doing trade now since 1996, 1997 because of, get this, the Good Friday agreements.
Yeah. People saw this movie, they was like, hey, what's...
Right? So you had the Good Friday Accords in the 90s where they made it that there wasn't an actual border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, which meant that people would drive back and across the border. They could work back and forth across the border. Essentially, they worked almost like one country, except in certain... they weren't one country. It's very complicated, but the point is it was much more like being integrated into one area than not. And that put a lot of the sectarian issues on the back burner, right? Well, because of Brexit, there is now again a border, because there's a border between the United Kingdom and the rest of Europe. Well, now you have a whole question that has not been resolved as to what do you do about the border in Ireland. Okay, do we go back to having border guards and checks and all sorts of trade issues and working issues? They screwed themselves. They completely screwed themselves. And the reason they screwed themselves is the same stupid stuff that he's talking about throughout this movie, is that essentially we're going to make Britain great again. His whole thing is, invest your money with us. We're going to make Britain this, empire again. The whole movie is about how the British Empire was lost through the 60s, okay? Because you had all of these post-colonial rebellions in places like Africa. You had, so places like Kenya saying, look, we are not part of your empire anymore. There is no empire. This whole movie is about people who grew up with this idea of the British Empire, have not gotten away from it, and they think that they can reclaim it. They think that they can essentially, build a new empire, and they can't. And they can't because you've got things like the IRA, right? Yeah, he might not be the right target. He's not the guy who actually ripped these guys off, but it doesn't matter because he is as much up to his neck with the British government as anyone, right?
What's interesting about this movie, like for half the movie, you just assume it's a gangster film. These invisible gangsters are bumping off his guys. And suddenly, like at the end, you realize, oh, wait, he's in over his head.
He's way in over his head.
And like you figured it out before he figures it out. Like we actually watch him figure it out in real time in the back of a car.
He runs some casinos, which is legal, and he does like kind of legitimate stuff, but he wants to be a real power player. And he doesn't, and so the film is just about a guy who doesn't realize, no, this is so much bigger than you. You have no idea.
Well, the thing is that he's used to just bullying, like, lower level thugs, that kind of thing. He's bullying the chief of police.
Yep.
And then he's bullying this councilman, and he just assumes, like, I have them under my thumb, I don't have to worry about them. And what undoes them is that this Councilman Harris is doing something else with the IRA because, like, I need these guys to work on my projects, so, like, I have to give money to them. But he has no idea this is happening, and so, he's in the dark the entire film. He's basically just, like chasing his own tail. Yeah. Until,
Exactly. That's a good point. He is just chasing his own tail.
Well, let's go into Helen Mirren's character.
Okay.
So she was written as like the girlfriend, the gun mole or whatever.
Yeah.
And she kind of took the role into her own and changed it to this like apparently it was written as if like this dumb girl, like, oh, you're so nice, whatever, you're so brave, you'll figure it out, that type of thing. And she changed it completely.
Yeah. No, she is. This film never makes her out to be kind of an airhead who is just there for the money.
Like, for one thing, she changed her class to like, oh, she's upper class. She played, I think she played lacrosse with Princess Anne or something. She mentions that on the boat at some point.
Oh, I missed that bit of dialogue. That's good though. That's good.
And you know, maybe she did, maybe she didn't. But like, it still kind of shows what she's, you know, what strata she's from.
Right. Whereas Hoskins, I mean, we at one point, while he's trying to figure out who killed Colin, he goes off to Brixton, which is, you know, a very economically depressed area of London, and he's talking to a drug dealer that, you know, he's trying to figure out, you know, like, I know you know people involved with Colin, like, you know, did you kill him for whatever reason? So, you know, and they go there to torture him. But at one point, you know, there's these kids who are like going to vandalize the car and demand money, and, you know, he pays them off and he laughs at, like, you know, hey, that's how I started out. So you get the sense that, like, because he's Cockney and because, you know, you see that scene, you know, he came from the streets, whereas she obviously, you know, did not.
Yeah.
You know, so however they came together.
And note that those kids were white, whereas, you know, he'll help out the white kids.
Oh yeah, no, there's definitely a racial element to all of this, because, you know, he is extremely like aggressive with any of the black kids and young people while he's searching for this one drug dealer's house, and, you know, he's perfectly willing to have his guy razors torture the guy.
Yeah.
With knives. Yeah, it's a bloody scene.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, whereas with the kids, he just kind of smiles at, you know, with the white kids, you know. So there is definitely, and again, when I was thinking of The Sopranos, I was thinking about the whole arc. I guess there's an episode or two where there's a councilman who wants to build houses in Newark, and they want to get all of the, you know, poor people out, and of course the people are black. And so, like, there's an entire episode with Tony going into this neighborhood and talking about how, you know, this used to be a good neighborhood, and, you know, it's the same type of stuff you see on any Facebook page of people complaining about how, you know, the city used to be great. You know, it's so yeah, I'm not going to get into it. Like, this is not a podcast about explaining, like, you know, socioeconomic turmoil, except that this is a film that deals with it, and it's all about, you know, the fact that, you know, they go to Brixton, you know, in a couple of years, that's going to kick off a whole series of riots because of police brutality and stuff.
So probably like 3/4 of the film goes by without him figuring out that's the IRA. Like,
yeah.
And so there's this famous scene where he rounds up, he has his guys round up all of like the kind of low level,
all the other kind of gangsters who have their own little, you know.
Yeah, but they're all under
fiefdoms,
him.
Yeah.
So, and they hang them up on meat hooks,
yeah,
upside down.
I mean, it's pretty funny because they will take them to the abattoir. And I have, you know, abattoir is what the British call a slaughterhouse.
Ah.
So, yeah. So it's funny that he's like, yeah, let's take these guys to the slaughterhouse. But the idea being that they're not actually going to kill them. They just want to scare the hell out of them.
Yeah.
You know?
So they're all hanging upside down. There's like 7 of them. While he's questioning them, the chief of police comes over and says, like, look, this is an IRA problem.
Yeah, they figure out that the bombs that have been going off would definitely have all the signatures that they were made by the IRA. So that's how we figure out that's who's been setting off the bombs.
Chief of police is like, I'm going to send this up to federal.
Yeah, whatever the British equivalent of federal is.
And he's like, oh no, and he slaps me. He's like, I can get rid of you, and like, I don't.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when Harold just like slaps him. Yeah, Bob Hoskins. He's just like, look, yeah, you might be the chief of police, but yeah, I'm the head gangster.
Yeah, I could easily put you on one of these meat hooks.
Yeah.
That's what he says. So.
But because it's not actually, it turns out that it's not his own people doing it. He's like, yeah, cut him down. And everybody's just kind of mad because they're like, cut him down. We were here to beat them up. Yeah. You know?
He's like, I'll give him 1,000 each.
Yeah, I know. It's just like, I don't know, man. If you want to give me 1,000 pounds, hang me upside down for half an hour. That's fine. Like, seriously, I will take it. I will take the money. Go ahead.
Apparently the actors
You can even slap me a little.
The actors were passing out from being held upside down. Like,
but if they gave me $1,000...
I'll just say, it would be uncomfortable.
Sure. Lots of things are uncomfortable. I don't like sitting in a chair for 8+ hours a day. Give me $1,000.
I don't trust razors. I feel like he would do something to me. Just if I looked at him wrong way, he would just...
Well, you'd certainly lose the beard.
Yeah. While this is going on, there's a scene where Victoria is being taken back.
Oh, yeah, by Jeff. The kind of second in command, or wants to be second in command.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, I guess this is the first inkling we have that you can't trust Jeff.
It turns out that Councilman Harris had Jeff send Colin
over to...
So Jeff knew everything.
Yes.
But hadn't told
He never
Harold.
told Harold, Bob Hoskins, ever what was going on. So really, it's kind of on Jeff that any of this is happening, because he never told, hey, we've been making these deals with the IRA to basically keep the union from going on strike. We've been paying them off, funneling money. So essentially, we've been funneling money to a terrorist organization that is dedicated to ridding our own government from their country so that we can build up this entire financial district. There's something very funny about that idea.
So now this is the one thing I don't understand about Jeff, because it seems like Jeff is just playing smart the whole time.
Yeah.
Like he's laying low, playing it cool the whole time. But then he says, I want to lick every inch of you to Victoria.
Yeah, explain. Here's what's happening. So he's been told to take Victoria home, right? Because the pub that they're going to take.
That's right. I have ADD and I jump around.
You do jump around. I know. I do a lot of editing on this show because of it.
Oh, really? Sorry, I just realized.
Yeah. So let me explain what happened. So they were going to take their American investor. Who plays it? It's Eddie Constantine, right?
Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah. He who is he played gangsters, and he's in Alphaville, I think. Anyway, so the gangster is played by Eddie Constantine. They were going to take him to a pub that Harold owns and have this big dinner and stuff, and of course the pub gets blown up, which was a thing the IRA was doing.
Yeah.
So, this is all, kind of ripped from the headlines, Law and Order style. He says, take him out to a restaurant instead, and, I'll go, and this is when he goes and has them round up the other gangsters. So after she tries to mollify Charlie, the American, and say, look, we've got this under control, don't worry about this, we will figure this all out.
Oh, this is also where Councilman Harris gets really drunk.
Yes, this is where we start to find out that there's more going on with Councilman Harris than he has let on. So this is when they're at the dinner, and afterwards, Jeff is taking her back to the condo that Harold and Victoria live in. And so he decides he's going to go in with her to make sure that, nothing happens to her. And he gets into the elevator with her, and he's getting very, very intimate with her. You wonder how the film is going to play it. Is she going to welcome his advances or not? And the way I watched her play it, it was sort of like, I can't really put him off because I don't know what his game is.
Yeah. And I still don't know what his game is there.
Well, no, I think his game is that the film doesn't really spell it out, but I think Jeff is willing to essentially sell Harold enough rope to hang himself and take over. I think Jeff is willing to let the IRA think that Harold was behind assassinating their members. And then when Harold is out of the way, Jeff can take over because he's already been working on squeezing out Razors. There's dialogue early in the film that Razors is getting jealous of Jeff.
Right.
Jeff let Colin get killed. The widow who spits on him, it's in part because he's the one who set everything up, right? I think Jeff is he's trying to do a slow takeover of the organization.
He's also doing other stuff. Like he's somehow involved with that guy being crucified, the guy who...
Oh yeah, that was wild.
The IRA stole explosives from this one warehouse. Once Harold finds out about it, he wants to send a guy to talk to the guy to let them in. So this is kind of where we find out that where Jeff keeps hearing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And he keeps telling the IRA oh, now they're doing this, and so that's when this guy gets nailed to the floor. This
woman comes in to the warehouse and finds him nailed to the floor because, it's the weekend of Easter.
Yeah.
When he's taking, Victoria up to the hotel, because again, you jumped around. When he's taking Victoria up to the hotel and, he says, I want to lick every inch of you. And she's just like, Oh, thank God the door of the elevator just opened.
Yeah.
Goodbye. I'm going in. I think he's essentially doing a power play, and he thinks that he could have Victoria as well.
Yeah.
That's kind of the moment I got clued into what exactly was going on. The fact that he would make a move on her tells you he thinks that Harold's done for by the end of the weekend.
Right.
So that's how you know that Jeff is not just in on this, but he's probably set up the entire thing. He could have been the one who got the IRA guys killed.
Yeah.
We don't know that, but it's not a crazy thing to infer.
Right.
She just escapes him. She just goes, and we have this great performance with Helen Mirren of, there are moments where she tries to be tough as nails, but then there are moments where she's allowed to kind of just break down, and she is terrified. At one point, Harold comes back to their condo, and of course he is just completely stressed out and trying not to be killed.
Yeah.
And she's in there, and they start to have an argument, and I guess he like shoves her.
Right.
It's not terribly violent. I gotta say, it's not terribly violent, and you never get the sense in this movie that they don't love each other. In fact, quite the opposite. She is unbelievably supportive of him
to the point where they seem like partners. Really,
they
like
are. They're completely partners.
She's a little bit more like in tune with the business side of things, and
again because she's posh.
Yeah.
So she understands how to talk to people and how to keep people entertained and all of the rest of it. But
it's a very Bill and Hillary.
Sure. Yeah,
vibe,
definitely.
I think with those two.
I know
the power dynamic.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so they get into this argument, and he kind of gives a shove, and it's not like it's terribly violent or anything, but they both just kind of break down, because they're so terrified that they're going to die at any minute, because they don't know at this point exactly what's going on and who's setting off the bombs. And it's just a really brilliant piece of acting between the two of them, where he's suddenly horrified that he even shoved her, and she suddenly, like, all of her resolve is just crumbling, and they're holding on to each other. It's a really amazing performance.
You get the feeling that how he's acting this entire day is not how he's been acting for 10 years.
Right, exactly.
Like,
he's been comfortable.
He's been nervous, like, in the beginning, because he doesn't know if he's going to get the money from the Americans, and then everything else happens.
Right. All of his nerves have been about money.
Yeah.
He hasn't had to be a real gangster for a while.
Yeah, you get the feeling that, this is just the old him coming back up. And he's like, oh, I forgot I was that way.
and you get a sense that he hasn't had to flex these muscles in a while. There are a couple of times where he commits these acts of violence. He, even kills people, and he's shaken afterwards. And like Hoskins gives a brilliant performance of a guy who he can commit in that moment, and then afterwards he's just shaking, and he's kind of, this isn't like Michael Corleone who doesn't worry about dropping the gun and commits to being a gangster. This is kind of the opposite. This is a guy who is losing it.
It's a little bit even different than Tony Soprano.
Yeah.
Because Tony is more of a sociopath where, he can kill someone and then he'll be hanging out with his daughter, being nice.
He finds out that, Harris was behind the deal that got Colin killed, and so he goes to get revenge against Harris. And
well, this is after killing Jeff.
Well, we talked about he ends up confronting Jeff on the boat, and Jeff never confesses exactly to what's going on, but his own sort of stories start not checking out and stop making sense to Harold, and so Harold just explodes in a fit of rage, and he definitely loses control and just ends up breaking a scotch bottle and stabbing Jeff in the neck, and oh boy, it is a bloody
rough.
scene.
Yeah, and he's this mad because he's realizing this is all over $5,000 or 5,000 pounds that I had nothing to do with. He didn't authorize any of this. Nothing. This is all just underlings doing stuff.
Exactly.
Of kings in days of old, but there's no England now. All the wars that were won or lost somehow don't seem to matter very much anymore. All the lies we were told, all the lives of the people running round, their castles are burned.
All right, this recording is so long that we stopped in the middle. I started a charcoal grill, cooked 2 steaks. We ate dinner.
Yeah.
Each had a beer. Cleaned up. And now we're back.
Actually, we listened to Andy Mescola.
We did listen to Andy Mescola on the radio on WFMU. That was
Friend
fun.
of the podcast.
Yes. My point being, we have a lot that we've been talking about. Like, we've already been recording for an hour and 10 minutes. So this will be interesting to where this is edited to. So anyway, where were we?
Harris.
Harris.
So this is where Harold confronts Harris.
Oh yeah, at the Derby.
And Harold looks like he's about to blow up the city. And Victoria calms him down.
Yeah.
And says, "You have Harris. Use him."
Well, he doesn't quite use him.
That's the thing. Like, if she was running things, this probably would have been avoided.
You know what? I think you're right. Yeah.
If they had just brought 60,000.
In a way, she's like the opposite of Lady Macbeth.
Right. So they confront Harris at his office. Apparently, there was a scene filmed for this, which apparently people have said was a great scene, and it got cut for time reasons.
And I think it's lost entirely.
As
far as I know, it does not exist anymore, which is a shame.
Yeah. But they end up setting up a deal with the head of the IRA, who was a stock car driver.
And why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they go to a stock car racetrack during, a show, and they go to it. They're presenting it as if, well, let's make a deal, but actually they're trying to ambush Harris and the other IRA guys, and they do. He assumes, he has assassins come and kill them, and they go out the window, and cars are exploded and crash into each other, and it's wonderfully destructive.
Yeah, it's great for the promo of the movie.
It really it works rather well in the trailer.
Yeah.
It's a funny trailer because on the one hand it doesn't quite feel representative of what the movie actually is, but at the same time it's just like, there really are that many explosions though.
It's a good representation of Commando. That's pretty much what Commando is about.
Yeah. By killing Harris and a couple of the other IRA guys, Harold thinks that he has solved the issue.
And
everything's fine.
The next line is great.
Oh my God. So he goes to confront Charlie, the American gangster, and say, hey, look, he wants to go and reassure him that everything's taken care of.
To him, everything's fixed. Like, now everything's settled, and now this is just a victory lap.
All we got to do is just show Charlie everything's fine. He'll hand over the money, and we can start the development. So he goes in to where Charlie is staying at the hotel.
Now, apparently, I didn't notice this when we watched it. I was reading up on this scene. Like, as they're driving up to the hotel, you can see another car, and it focuses on this other car.
Okay. This is a movie I need to watch a few times, I think, to get everything going on. I'm going to buy the Criterion of this. I fell in love with this movie just immediately. So, I did not notice that there is a second car, which is very important.
I think the way that they do it, it's not that you notice it, but it's like something in your back of your mind. It's like, wait, I just saw something weird. What did I just see? And you don't know what it was because it happened so fast. But something's unsettled.
Yeah, so he goes with Razors and Victoria to go and meet Charlie. Right.
I think he goes up alone.
No, that's what I'm saying. They stay downstairs, and but they all kind of go because he, as you say, he thinks this is a victory lap, and they're all going to go out and celebrate afterwards. Yeah. So he goes and he leaves them downstairs, and he goes up to see Charlie at the hotel and just say, "Hey, look, man, everything's taken care of." So he goes in, and the words out of his mouth are,
"The troubles are over."
Oh my God. And for those of you who don't know, the Troubles is the name for the conflict in Northern Ireland. And so this is one of those moments where...
apparently if you just kill a stock car driver, everything's fixed.
Yes, we don't have to worry about the IRA. Yeah, him saying the troubles are over is quite a good moment, because it's
how many leaders of Al Qaeda did we bomb?
Yes. Well, but not only that, but by saying the troubles are over and it's only 1980, there's going to be bombings until like 96. Mm-hmm. Okay, the Good Friday Accords are good 15 years, 16
such
years
a great
away.
line.
Yeah, it's so well delivered. Yeah,
because he's saying it to an American who would probably have no idea what the troubles are.
Oh, absolutely.
What are our troubles?
Yeah. And of course, Charlie is just like, yeah, no, you people don't know what the hell you're doing. We are not putting any money into this.
Yeah.
There's bombs going off. Yeah, I'm sorry. We don't care
he's saying
about.
this is like Vietnam. I'm getting out of here.
and I think there is something to the idea of American abandonment of Europe at that time. That we were more interested in Asia. I mean, this was post the opening up of China. This was America had pivoted to Asia. As it were, and we weren't terribly interested in the European market anyway. Which, I mean, on the one hand is kind of short-sighted, and on the other hand, the world is bigger than Europe. So yeah, Charlie's just like, yeah, you guys are over, and Harold just flips out and is basically saying, you guys don't know what you're talking about, and you're losers, and blah blah, and the thing is, it's very funny to listen to because no, Charlie's right. The future's not in Europe. The future's in Asia.
But Harold goes like, yeah, I'm going to the Germans.
Oh, my God, that's right. He's just like, no, it's fine. We don't even need you Americans. We're going to work with the Germans. It's fine. We're going to make Europe the leader of the world. And, it's just so bizarre to listen to because, you jump ahead and Brexit happens. And, that's the last thing anybody English was looking for was to work with the Germans. Yeah, I mean, it's absurd.
But what's fascinating, though, is that this is all before the European Union was like a big thing.
Well, this is before the reunification of Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was just the common market. There was no euro.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a European Union. There's just trade agreements. It's really all it is at the time.
But Harry's vision kind of did take place for 10 years.
Yeah, no, exactly. There was a brief period of time where the EU was this kind of unified bloc, and things have been wiggly for a while now.
Yeah. London was a big part of it. Maybe not the center, but it was close to it.
No, but it kind of, I don't know if you could say it had one center, but in terms of the financial system, in terms of banks and trading and all that stuff, yeah, no, London was, I mean, still is, because things haven't fully shaken out, extremely important. The vision that he's trying to promote isn't entirely wrong, but what I find interesting is that we have not fully played out the implications of what he's talking about. Okay? We don't know where the EU is going to go. We're recording this on the day that there's the French elections, and as far as I can tell, Macron has won, which, thank goodness, because, nobody wants Le Pen. But, the EU has been shaky since at least 2008 and the financial crisis. You go through everything with the Greek sovereign debt crisis and the Italian issues with their debt, and that's not even touching on Turkey and the lira and all that stuff. But this is all part of the EU. And then Brexit happens, and the Brits are out, and they can't figure out Northern Ireland. And now again we're recording this, as there's the war in Ukraine. Europe's a mess.
Yeah.
Right? We don't know what's going to happen with the EU. And we don't know what's going to happen with the UK. There's so much that's up in the air. And it's very strange watching this movie and just being reminded of all the things that are happening right now. So yeah, Charlie rejects him. And in a huff, he leaves. He goes back down, gets into the car.
Summons his car. And
summons
then
his car.
Lights turn on.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really see who's driving. And
he gets in, and it is not his car.
Yeah, they floor it as soon as he gets in, and he's like, "Yo, where's Victoria?" And then
it takes him a second to realize, wait, where is Victoria? Am I in the right car? At which point they show the front seat, and Pierce Brosnan turns around and has a gun with a silencer trained on him.
And he looks over, he sees Victoria, as we said.
Yes, we see Victoria and Razors being driven away. Razors is probably dead by now.
Razors is dead. You can see a hole.
Dead. Oh, okay.
But it's so fast. I watched the video 3 times, and it's
okay.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, we see Helen Mirren just melting down in the back of this car, being driven away.
And the thing is, there's an earlier scene where she's just saying, "I don't want to die. I don't want them to. Don't let them kill me."
Yeah.
And it's so sad, and it's it's going to happen, but it's
It's rough, and then this is where in the beginning of the podcast we talked about you get this amazing performance from Hoskins where he is in the back of this car and it's just focused on his face, going through all of these emotions, realizing like he is trapped. What is he gonna do? And then the film just ends. It's one thing that I like that you brought up while we were watching it was you compared the whole thing with the IRA to Cuba in.
Godfather 2.
Godfather 2.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Like it's gangsters and, businessmen and like important people just carving up this part of a city, thinking like, oh, well, we've had all the power all this time. We've had our way all this time. Why, like now we're all together. Mm-hmm. Of course, this is going to work, and just not considering the local populace or the people that would actually be doing the building.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Oh, one other thing, you wanted to bring up the Cray twins. Right.
So like looking it up, I kept seeing the Cray twins mentioned, and they were a pair. They're identical twins who were crime lords, like organized crime lords in the 50s and 60s. They owned a nightclub in the West End. So they were big parts of the scene. Frank Sinatra would be there. Like
this is swinging London in the 60s.
Exactly. Well, the Beatles were part of it.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Like,
okay.
Everyone that was famous, like at the time, like was part of this thing.
It was the cool part of the city.
Yeah.
And fashionable and Austin Powers. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very much Austin Powers.
Yeah.
So the thing about these two, so it was Ronnie and Reggie.
Okay.
And they were boxers, and but then they turned to crime, and they became they just offered protection money against this Richardson gang, who were like the other gang of London.
Okay.
And so it was kind of the two of them, and so they eventually ended up with this nightclub in the West End, and Ronnie was bisexual.
Okay.
But more homosexual.
Okay.
So he kept hiring these young waiters, and prostituting them out to different people. And eventually they would blackmail people with this.
And when you say people, you mean like politicians.
Oh, yeah. Politicians, probably artists. Lucian Freud and who was the other one? Francis Bacon.
Okay.
Were both regulars there. They also had gambling.
Because homosexuality was still illegal.
Until 1967. Yep.
Jeez, that is so late.
Yep.
Of course, it technically wasn't legal everywhere in the United States until like 2003. So, yeah. I mean, was it Lawrence v. Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I can laugh at the UK, but we're worse. So go on.
So part of the reason why they got away with this for so long, and they were huge celebrities, like they were hanging out with celebrities, and the reason why they were untouchable is that they had stuff on both parties, on like the Tories, on Labour. So there was rumors that Ronnie and this Lord Boothby, who was like a major Conservative Party member, were in a relationship, or he was just providing him with prostitutes or something. But they were hugely popular, but at the same time they were really violent. They were shooting people, and Ronnie once just shot a guy in a bar, just walked up to him and shot him.
So they made a film about the Cray brothers, right?
There's a bunch of them.
Okay.
There's one called Legend, I guess, with Thomas Hardy.
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I haven't seen, but I just remember Thomas Hardy plays twin gangsters, and
it just seems like there's so many angles that people take it from. Like some people are like, oh, they were they were gay and persecuted, or they were violent and insane.
Yeah,
and they were all those things.
Yeah,
but
there's no one story here.
Yeah, like Ronnie was certified schizophrenic, and so he needed drugs, but apparently Reggie was not great either. So.
But what I didn't know, and that you told me, is this is the basis of the Piranha Brothers on
on the
Monty Python.
Yeah, because that was that came out 70, 71. So this was all fresh in people's minds, and the whole idea behind the Piranha Brothers is that they're nuking things. They're just getting more and more violent as things go on. And
okay, so that makes sense then. Yeah. Okay, so I just thought it was this kind of absurd, like, yeah, we're a couple of gangsters, but apparently it's based on
and the one's named Dimsdale, and the big hedgehog that he's scared of shows up at the end. Goes like, Dimsdale.
So I need to go back and rewatch those episodes. You know? Just because, again, that's something interesting where there's this cultural like reference that I just would go over my head when I was like 13.
Well, the thing about it is that I feel like we've been like, it seems like the media has been kind of grappling with it at different spots.
Sure.
Because they couldn't really just come out and say, oh, by the way, like all these like MPs and other guys were involved in this like big ring.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's still kind of a thing, especially in the UK. And the reason we're bringing this up is because there's this entire like gay angle to the movie that is inspired by things like the Kray brothers. And
I think it's something that like the British public had been dealing with.
Yeah.
Whereas in America, homosexuality in the mafia is not really that big an issue, or not
an issue, but like
not,
something we don't talk about.
Yeah. There is something in The Sopranos. They go into it, but like this.
Wait, in what season? Because I'm only in like season 4.
I don't know.
Don't tell me.
Maybe,
don't tell me.
Maybe it never comes up.
Yeah, well. I'm really behind. You know, The Sopranos is amazing, but it's like I'll watch like 3 episodes and then I'll feel kind of depressed because it's a rough show. Like I find it extremely fulfilling and like it lights off all these centers in my brain. But there's also like I can't watch more.
I dip in and out because I honestly can't take all the like women being just.
Yeah, that's part of it. And like I think it's actually a really, valuable part of the show, but it gets rough after a while and it's just like, yeah, I can't watch that again. Like the film doesn't really talk about, but to what extent, organized crime can use blackmail to get politicians to do what they want, and if they don't need if they don't use blackmail, sometimes all you need to do is pay people off. People are often, also willing to do these things.
So this movie went through a lot of development issues. At one point, it was going to be put onto TV.
Oh God!
And they were going to
cut a
ton of stuff out, and they said that it was incomprehensible what they had it cut down to. It was like 75 minutes, and
it's going to be like the first time I saw The Big Lebowski, and it was on television. It's like, what did I just watch?
So Hoskins actually showed it to Eric Idle.
Oh, is that what happened?
And Eric Idle went to George Harrison, who financed Life of Brian.
Well, yeah, okay, so this movie was put out by Handmade Films.
Right.
And Handmade Films is George Harrison's film company. And he put out The Life of Brian and Time Bandits.
That looks like a handmade film.
Time Bandits, yeah, like it feels
like,
right. Yeah, there are things about it that, yeah.
But George Harrison, after seeing this, said like, "Oh, I probably wouldn't have given money if I knew how violent it was."
It's a very violent film, but also I wonder if he also said that just because, I mean, they, musicians, especially in those days, they were dealing with organized crime. You had to. And so, like, how much of that was...
in terms of the Kray brothers, I'm sure he hung out with them.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure...
Everybody did back then.
In fact, I'm sure John Lennon borrowed some of their boys.
Yeah.
I mean, just from, things I've read. So I'm sure that, Harrison was a little taken aback. But it's a great film. Mm-hmm. Some of the other movies that Handmade put out was, like, With Nail and I, which is another one that we're going to cover.
That's right. We flipped a coin for that.
So this is not our last time with Handmade Films. The other movie that I wanted to bring up that you had said as we started the movie, Fish Called Wanda.
Oh right, yeah. The music for this, it's this monk man.
Yeah.
Which he hasn't done a lot.
Yeah, I have no idea who this guy is, but there's something about the music that reminded me, and the music and the fact that the opening of the film has no dialogue.
I'm sure it's directly
referencing.
Influenced. It just sounds too much alike. Like all the action scenes where it's like actual crime. It's like they just took the music.
But not only that, but like there's an undercurrent in A Fish Called Wanda, which I love. A Fish Called Wanda. I love
great.
That film. But there's an undercurrent in that of getting like just frustrated with this, pig-headed American that there obviously it's different in A Fish Called Wanda because I mean it's Kevin Kline and being a fool, but like there's something about the whole frustration with Americans Yeah, so I feel like there's a little bit of like visual references in A Fish Called Wanda to The Long Good Friday.
Yeah. Oh, what I was going to say is that the studio kind of backed out because of the IRA stuff. They're like, oh, IRA.
Oh, yeah. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Well, yeah, because they're like, oh, it makes the IRA look good. And I'm just like, wait, does it?
I know.
I mean, maybe this is me coming in as an American, but in America, like, there's always like this little element of, yeah, we love criminals.
Yeah.
And so, you
The
know.
thing about the IRA in this movie, it's kind of like the others in Lost.
Yeah.
Where you just don't see them. Like, they're just this invisible force that comes in and kills people.
Yeah, they're just sort of not otherworldly, but they're not people in the same
Are you
way.
saying they're elves?
They're not elves. They're definitely
I
not.
could believe that when looking at
Pierce Brosnan?
He could
Oh,
be
I
an
know,
elf.
right? Yeah.
So I will say it's better than Sword of the Valiant.
Yes.
And you know what? I'll even say I'm even gonna add in American Werewolf in London.
You know, I was thinking about that. Like, does that count as a British
I
film?
think in this case we'll have it count, and I'm gonna say it's better than that.
You know what? I think you're right.
Just because of the leads, because I think Helen Mirren and Bob Hoskins are just so amazing in this
They
film.
really are.
Like they
Yeah.
just.
But also, the script is, I mean, look, American Werewolf in London has a great script too. But
Yeah.
like the script of this is just, it's got some really great dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
So that was The Long Good Friday, starring Bob Hoskins, Helen Mirren, Pierce Brosnan, Eddie Constantine, Paul Freeman, a whole bunch of people. Directed by John Mackenzie and written by Barry Keefe.
Known as Frenzy Mackenzie.
Are
on
you
the set.
serious?
Yeah, apparently he's a wild man.
Sure, why not? It's
someone
the late
was
70s.
saying that it didn't feel like a movie set like that. Apparently, that everything felt very slapdash or something, but in a good way.
No, I'm sorry. A lot of movie sets sound pretty slapdash. I mean, when people say, "Oh, it didn't feel like a movie set," I'm like, "Yeah, they all kind of sound that way." I mean, especially in the late 70s.
Okay.
You can follow us on social media. We are Mary VS Movies on Twitter. We are maryvsmovies@gmail.com. Please write to us with any comments, questions, complaints, or suggestions. We are always happy to hear from you. We have gotten a ton of suggestions, and we always want more. Thank you again to everyone who has sent their ideas our way.
More Rutger Hauer suggestions.
No. Next week. We don't have to flip a coin because next week we have a special guest. Our longtime friend, Kate Eckert, is going to be on, and we will watch the Japanese comedy Tampopo, which we chose because there used to be a noodle place in Philadelphia called Tampopo that was named for the movie. So, plus Kate, they used to live in Japan. They have, some, background with that. So I thought, let's have Kate on. They are a librarian in Philadelphia Free Library System, and we'll have all sorts of fun things to talk about.
Yeah.
So next time we will be watching Tampopo with our good friend Kate.
Mm-hmm.
So until next time.
You don't crucify people, not on Good Friday.